Our reading today is a poem by Andrea Gibson, a queer author, poet, performer, activist who offered a deeply compassionate understanding of our human condition. Andrea died this past July from cancer at the age of 49, and the final year of their life was celebrated and encapsulated in the documentary Come See Me in the Good Light. So much of their poetry reminds us to balance diametrically opposed experiences of life. One of Andrea's unfinished poems was given to singer-songwriter Sarah Bareilles after their death, and it premiered at Sundance with the film. It's called Salt, Then Sour, Then Sweet. And we'll get to fall in love with it as the benediction of our service today. I wanted to offer a little context for it. For our reading today, I'll be sharing Andrea Gibson's poem, How the Worst Day of My Life Became the Best. When I realized the storm was inevitable, I made it my medicine. Took 2 snowflakes on the tongue in the morning, 2 snowflakes on the tongue by noon. There were no side effects, only sound effects. Reverb added to my lifespan, an echo that asked, what part of your life's record is skipping? What wound is on repeat? Have you done everything you can to break out of that groove? By nighttime, I was intimate with the difference between tying my laces and tuning the string section of my shoes, made a symphony of walking away from everything that did not want to sing in my life. Felt a love for myself, so consistent metronomes tried to copyright my heartbeat. Finally understood I am the conductor of my own life and will be even after I die. I, like the trees, will decide what I become. Porch swing, church pew, an envelope that must be licked to be closed, kinky choice. But I didn't close. I opened and opened until I could imagine that the pain was the sensation of my spirit not breaking. That my mind was a parachute that could always open in time, that I could wear my heart on my sleeve and never grow out of that shirt. That every falling leaf is a tiny kite with a string too small to see, held by the part of me in charge of making beauty out of grief. Stars shall I find, breathing in, breathing out. I am free, I am free, I am free. This service, these words, really make me want to be an adventurer. I want to find the stars and maybe even reach for them. I want to stand atop a mountain, a clearing above the highest trees, and gaze out with wonder. I want my days to be halted by the sun emerging finally from the clouds. I want to notice the flower growing between cracks in the concrete. I want to hear a child's noises and savor even every moment. I want to see life as an adventure and savor every sweet bite. In my childhood, I remember a distinct moment when an experience became an adventure, and it felt freeing. I was in the woods with my mom and our family friend, who I don't remember as being that far in age for my mom, but was distinctly cooler. And on that walk, this friend pointed things out to me in ways that only she could, and I heard it in ways only I would when she said it. And suddenly the woods were a place of magic, where every rock had a story and every tree nook had a 75% chance of being a fairy dwelling. I became acutely aware of my surroundings, and perhaps even more importantly when it comes to adventuring, I was starting to or trying to appreciate that awareness. starting to create new connections in my mind and my imagination, and increasing my connectedness to the world around me. To describe it like psychologist Fred Bryant might, I was enhancing my positive experience by savoring the moment, by savoring the adventure. Do you remember the last moment that you savored? This psychologist, Fred Bryant, has studied savoring for years. And he says that as children, we are trained to be careful, to watch out for dangers, but we aren't always trained to appreciate. He says that because of the way we are wired, sorrow and suffering find us, but we must find for ourselves the pleasures and joys of life. Bryant also helps us define savoring as the capacity to attend to and appreciate and enhance the positive experiences in one's life. So it isn't simply being aware of the moment or present to the moment. It isn't just mindfulness, though mindfulness is necessary. The awareness is necessary. Savoring requires that we have that mindfulness, that awareness of our feelings and our experience, and then appreciate the feeling. For Fred Bryant, this is the key to positive psychology, positive thought. For Bryant, my childhood memory of adventure helped enhance the positive experience. Appreciation and savoring are, for good reason, not always top of mind these days. They have to compete every minute with anxieties and stress and judgment, obligations. And I suppose this is where I take some issue with Bryant's savoring framework. And really, it isn't his framework I take issue with, it's the positive psychology approach within which he's placing this framework. I agree that we do need ways to shift out of negative thinking and into positive thinking. This is critical, and the importance of savoring those positive experiences in your day and life is absolutely something I want you to take with you from this service. And now please prepare yourself for the riskiest statement I've said from this pulpit so far. And we need to savor the negative experiences too. I have to be fair. Just as Bryant states that our brains are prone to survival mode, in which negative thoughts, anxiety, stresses easily cling. These negative thoughts can be places where we dwell, and I'm really not advocating for that. But I am trying to hold the truth of Bryant's framework of savoring, and savoring the positive, and the truth we were offered from Andrea Gibson in our reading this morning. When I realized the storm was inevitable, I made it my medicine. Took 2 snowflakes on the tongue in the morning, 2 snowflakes on the tongue by noon. When we realize the storm is inevitable, it is helpful to savor it, 2 snowflakes at a time. These words make me want to be an adventurer. Because you see, that walk with our extremely cool friend, when I began to see the rocks and trees anew, I was in a terrible mood. I was in a classic preteen funk, with little desire to be too warm, which it was, and around too many people, which we were. And in an attempt to bring us away from the crowd, we took a less trodden path, and this path followed the river. It had a nice breeze, so that took care of the too hot part, and we got to climb over some rocks, which was fun. And then we reached a point at the edge of a boulder when it suddenly became clear that we would be taking this to the next level. In order to get from point A to point B, we would need to carefully climb around the edge of this boulder, trying to grasp at whatever ledge we could with our hands and feet. The risk if we fell, a very gentle fall into mostly still water, probably not even up to the knees. Clearly a possibility I found absolutely unacceptable. So what do you think happened? Yeah, I lost my grip, and I fell gently into the water, and oh my gosh, it was so upsetting. I was humiliated. It felt like such a big thing. My mom joined me in the water, and we walked out, as was easy to do. And then the epitome of coolness turned to me and said, "Now that was a great adventure." There's a version of this experience where I was in a great mood as a kid, and falling into the water would have led to a fit of giggles, and she would have turned to me and said, "That was a great adventure," and I would have known deep down that adventures were fun and good, even when they were risky. And we would have savored it as a positive experience looking back. But this felt pretty lousy, and to this day, I savor it. I savor the embarrassment. I savor that upset moment of an adventure. So what does it mean to savor the upsets that are coming up now? A little bigger than falling into an inch of water. Am I really suggesting to savor the grief and anger, to savor our reaction to injustice, to violence, to war? To savor powerlessness and despair? I am. I am suggesting that we are already aware, and we should practice mindfulness to be aware of how these feelings arise in us, and just as we do when we savor positive experiences, we should appreciate how these negative and painful experiences and feelings impact our life. How do our reactions to injustice, our reactions to grief, how do these emotions impact our life? What is there to appreciate? While savoring positive experiences often calls us closer to stillness, like we did so many times today, like savoring the last bite of your favorite meal or that pink hue of a sunset, I think savoring negative experiences can call us closer to action. When I read another headline about someone's beloved who died in a bombing or an ICE detention center, I'm trying to practice staying with that outrage and grief for a little bit. Not dwelling there or getting stuck there, but staying with it intentionally, to appreciate that feeling, that energy that is seeking a place to go. And I've experienced you doing this too. Though I don't know if you would use the language of savoring it necessarily, but I know you stay with it because then with all that outrage and grief and longing for change, we organize. We make sandwiches. And we volunteer for our meals program to feed hundreds every week because it is outrageous that our neighbors would go hungry. We make signs and we go to protest because we insist on change. We insist that our anger will fuel our hope. I want to savor pain as if my grief is touching the grief of generations before me, as if my outrage is calling on the outrage of every justice movement through the ages. I want to savor it because I want it to be important to my life and my story. Just like I want beauty and joy and laughter to be important. I want to savor every last bite, the salt, the sour, and the sweet. It makes me want to be an adventurer. In fact, I've decided that I am. And I am so glad to be adventuring beside you. Let's savor it. Amen.